This webinar was recorded for subrecipients of the Tennessee Strong Families Grant on March 18, 2026. Dr. Angie Elkins, Professor of Sociology and Social Work at Walters State Community College, was our subject matter expert presenter. The session described what artificial intelligence is and exposed participants to common tools that can be used in social work and community settings. It also identified ethical risks of AI use, including bias, hallucinations, and over-reliance, reviewed PII protection practices when using AI in client-related work, and encouraged AI as a support tool, not a decision maker. The slides and reference materials are posted on our webpage for your reference and review.
Thank you, Brooke. I appreciate the invitation. I love talking to other people about cool new things that are going on. So as we said, today we're going to do AI and human services. What kind of new tools are there? What are some things to think about when you're looking at using AI? I know AI is not for everyone. I know a lot of people are like, no, I don't want it. I'm against it. This is kind of just to give you an overview of what are some of the programs and how they can work, okay? Um, so our learning goals describe what AI is and identify some common tools. Identify ethical use, ethical risks of AI use, bias, hallucination, over-reliance. Those are things that can show up. We're going to look at applying PII protection practices in using AI in client-related work and how to use AI as a support tool, not a decision maker. And, you know, as a faculty member teaching, I see a lot of my students are, oh, AI can do my homework for me and let me just plug it in and then turn it in. And that's becoming a huge problem when we're looking at AI. And so we want to think about how we can use it effectively where it's not doing all of our stuff for us. Well, my screen's flipping on me, but okay. We're going to do a couple poll everywheres. So if you can get your phone out and take a picture of the QR code, it will take you to the poll that I'm asking. And the question first is, when you hear about AI and human services, what is the first word that comes to mind? And as you enter those in, I'll share some of them out with us. I'll give you a few minutes. If you want to join by web, we put the link in the chat as well. If you want to join by text, you can send a text message to 37607 with my username, and then it'll pop up. Our first one is conflicts. That's definitely something we see a lot. Support, tool, stealing. I have a lot of friends who are into art, and there's a lot of issues with art and AI and it stealing things, so I can definitely see that. Scary, helper, gathering, resource, tool. Okay. I'll give you another couple seconds to get those in. Research, that's a good one. Okay. Quick, I like quick. Exciting, judgment, okay, automation. Okay, so we've got some pretty good answers here as to what comes to mind with AI. But there's two main themes I'm seeing, and this is what I see a lot, is the I'm really scared of it, I'm nervous about it kind of thing. And then you've got the, oh, this is really awesome, it can do everything kind of person. And so, you know, when we think about it, we want to look at it in a way that helps us understand how to use it and not abuse it, okay? So we'll come back to our poll everywhere in a little bit, so make sure you keep those active. But what is AI? AI is not a therapist. It is not a supervisor. It is not a decision maker. It is a tool. Just like any other tool in human services, it can support or harm depending on how we use it. There have been cases of people using AI and it telling them to do harmful things. And so you want to be cautious about what you put into AI and you want to verify what comes out of it. It is not always correct. All right. Common AI tools you've probably heard of like ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, Google Gemini. I use ChatGPT a lot. That's the one that I am most often in. These are text and chat-based AI large language models. So, like drafting emails, that's a really good option for drafting emails. The introduction Brooke gave for me a little bit earlier, AI helped me write because I'm like, I don't know what to put on here. So that can be an option. Brainstorming, it's a great way to look at brainstorming. Like, I need to work with domestic violence clients and I need to figure out something to do. What are some ideas of activities I could do with these? Okay. Summarizing public information. Let's say there's a huge report out there from the government related to your job, and you're like, I don't have time to read 30 pages. Let it summarize it for you. Let it help you out there. And then creating worksheets is another great way that we can use these text-based large language models. Some other ones, your writing and editing assistants like Grammarly, Microsoft Editor. When I opened Adobe a minute ago, which is where I have this presentation, AI popped up at the bottom and said, what can I help you with? So we're seeing it embedded in a lot of different things. Some of the AI features are not even called AI tools in our minds, but they're seen in the system as AI. So it's running in the background as AI, even though you're not really recognizing it. It can be grammar suggestions. It can help you rewrite a tone. Let's say you're working with a client and you're really frustrated with that client, but you want to say something in a way that's not going to clue them into your frustration. That can help you reword things. And like I said earlier, it can also do the summarizing documents. You also have the image and media generators. This is where a lot of the art people get conflicted about, but it can be used to create flyers, training materials, visual aids. Canva Magic Design, which is what was used to create this presentation. DALL-E, which I don't have a whole lot of experience with, but I know some people who do. And Adobe Firefly, which I've played with a little bit, but not a whole lot. I don't do a lot with the art image side of it. But those are some options. Like if you're creating a flyer for domestic violence training, or domestic violence support group, that could help you out with creating that flyer. AI systems in software. Sometimes AI is embedded into the systems you already use, even if you don't realize it. There may be programs that your organization is using that has AI included in them. It might include like risk scoring, eligibility screening, maybe case prioritization or data analysis kind of stuff. Some simple examples might be your autocomplete in your email, where you can click that, hey, this is great, thanks, kind of reply and not have to type in a reply. Spell check can fit under this. Predictive text on your phone can fit in under this. Even the recommendation systems like on Netflix. Like you click on Netflix and it recommends what movie you might want to watch next. That's AI. And so it is all around us. Some terminology that you'll need to know as we go through. AI is technology designed to perform tasks that require human thinking. And this is things like understanding language, recognizing patterns, making predictions. It includes learning, reasoning, problem solving, perception. So it sounds like you're interacting with a human when you're having a conversation with AI. Machine learning is a type of AI where computers learn patterns from data instead of being programmed step by step. So you put a whole lot of data into it, and out pops this idea of, okay, I know how to react in this situation because I've got this data. We're not getting into machine learning, so don't stress over that one. Large language models are like extensive machine learning. They're trained on lots and lots of text. And that's so that they can understand and generate human-like language. And that is what a lot of our chat GPTs, our co-pilots, those kind of things are. And then generative AI creates new content. And so once they've been trained on all that data, they can take that and create new stuff for you. So let's say you're working with a client and you want to have a worksheet for them and you can't find the exact worksheet you want. You can put that into AI and it can create a worksheet for you. Goal number 2 for the day, identify, well, first, any questions about what AI is? And please feel free to interrupt me at any time. I'm happy to talk about anything. Okay, I don't see anybody typing, so okay. Goal number 2 is identify ethical risks of AI use. So we're going to talk about ethics, we're going to talk about bias, we're going to talk about hallucinations and over-reliance. And those are our big issues when we come to using AI. A lot of people are like, well, what can I do? What can't I do? How do I make sure this is correct? Those are all things that we need to look at. When we're talking about ethics, confidentiality, client welfare, dignity, those are all really important things. I'm a social worker background, so, I think about the social worker code of ethics and the values in the social work field and how those fit in. We need to protect privacy and confidentiality as much as possible. Never put identifiable client data into public AI tools. Not their name, not their birthday, not anything about them that would identify them. Be cautious of how data may be stored or processed within the AIs. A lot of them put it into their little databases, and so it becomes like public in a way if you know how to read the data and go in depth there. We also want to think about promoting client self-determination. Does my interaction with AI reduce the client determination? Does it give them freedom? Does it reduce that freedom? Okay. It can do both. You want to avoid harm. AI is not always right. Make sure you're double checking things. If the agency you're working with has policies in place, follow whatever policies those are. If they don't, we're going to go through how to develop some policies later on. But if you wouldn't put it in a public training session, don't put it into AI. If you wouldn't talk about it in public spaces, don't put it into AI. That's typically how I look at it. If I would not have a conversation about it in the hallway, then I would not have a conversation about it with AI. Other ethical concerns, professional responsibility, competence, and integrity. We are supposed to practice within our scope. If we don't know enough about something that we're having to ask AI to explain it to us, maybe we shouldn't be doing that in our practice. Okay, we need to stick within our own scope. If you have questions, talk to your supervisors. There is a major learning curve happening with AI right now because it's changing so fast that often our supervisors don't know what it is or how it works or what the issues might be. And so that's one reason I wanted to do this session, was to kind of to guide as to where we can go with that. Always maintain competence in emerging practices. Don't assume AI knows everything. Don't assume AI is correct. Verify what it says. If it tells you, hey, CBT might be a great option for this client because of the stuff you put in here, okay? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Use your own judgment, use your own brain. Use AI for ideas, not decision making. So don't let AI replace your professional judgment. Keep up with risks and limitations. Read the news about AI and what the problems are and what might be an issue and what may not. And always use it as a support tool, not a decision maker. I was grading assignments this morning and it was helping me grade, but I was not just saying, oh, this says it should get an A and this says it should get a B. You have to look at it and process it and make sure it's correct. Stress, 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 honesty, and transparency. Okay. Do not present AI generated materials as evidence-based without verifying. You have to verify everything. Avoid fabricated citations. AI will make up citations in a heartbeat. And all you got to do is click the link that it gives you and be like, okay, that's not real. So be cautious about that. Be cautious about hallucinations. AI sometimes gets things wrong or makes things up. I just for fun one day was putting in the history of Dollywood to see what it came up with, and it gave me very incorrect information on that. And I don't know where it came from, but it did. So be cautious about hallucinations. When AI gives you information, it thinks it's correct and it will assure you that it's correct. And so you have to double check things. But be transparent if AI assists with documentation or materials. You may have seen on the very first slide, let me scroll back up here. Portions of this training were developed using AI as a brainstorming and drafting tool. All content has been reviewed and adapted by the presenter. I add that to a lot of my work simply because I want to acknowledge that, yes, I have used AI, but I'm not just copying and pasting from AI. I'll get you dizzy and scroll back down here.
Real quick, Angie, I like
Uh-huh.
that you included that you reviewed it because I've seen people put like the statement of like AI was used for, formatting or whatever, but I
Mhm.
like that you also included this is also reviewed by, and then you can even put your name or, whatever.
Yeah, that's what I try to make my students do as well, because they need to acknowledge that they have used that. Um, it's not going away. And I tell a lot of my coworkers that. They're like, well, we need to just ban it. And I don't even know how we can ban it at this point. So it's like one of those things that it's going to be here and we've got to figure out how to use it safely. So, um, okay. So questions to ask before you use AI. Let's say you're thinking about how to work with a specific client and you're struggling. Does this protect client confidentiality? How can I word it in a way in AI to get help, but not provide any documentation that would identify that client to AI? Lisa, yes, we will be sharing slides and we will also be sharing a kind of, what did you call it, Brooke? A how-to document? Something like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just a considerations document for drafting your own AI policy and then a sample policy too. I'll send all of that out afterwards, Lisa.
Mhm.
Thanks for asking.
Yep. And if you guys have any questions, you can email me at any time. My email's in the presentation as well. I'm happy to talk with people about this. So yeah, does this protect our client confidentiality? Is it within my scope of practice? I don't need to be working with kids because I don't work well with kids. Okay. I know some of you are great with kids, and that's awesome, but I'm not going to use AI to help me work with kids because I know I don't do well working with kids. Okay. Stay within the scope of what you are comfortable with, what your practice is. Would you feel comfortable explaining this use to a supervisor? If a supervisor said, hey, how did you make this decision? Are you okay with saying, well, I asked ChatGPT and it helped me? Okay. Make sure you feel comfortable with that. And would you defend this decision if it was reviewed? If someone was like, oh, I think this is a big ethical issue, are you comfortable defending your decision to use ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever program it is? And one thing that you can do is save whatever conversations you have. A lot of the programs save it automatically. And that can be really useful if you're ever like in a situation and you could say, hey, look, I didn't put any identifying information in here. This is what I did. And that way you're kind of protecting yourself by having that copy too. So AI bias is our next thing. Large language models may produce stereotypes or deficit-based language. It may use cultural patterns incorrectly. It doesn't create inequality in itself, but it depends on what data has been put into it. And so if you're running an organization and you're putting all your data in there, not identifying data, but like all your statistics in there, it may start pulling out things and saying, okay, they classify all the people of Hispanic descent in this category. And so let's just start putting them in there. without looking at everything. And so you want to be cautious about how your data is being used by AI. AI bias happens when AI systems reflect or amplify existing social inequalities because they're learning from historical data. Sometimes AI is like, oh, I know this is bias and I need to fix it. And then they go too far the other direction. Okay. And so that's something to also be aware about. If you're looking at past data that includes inequality and discrimination, AI may reproduce it. If past systems underserve certain racial group, AI trained on that data may reinforce that. If documentation has labeled some communities as high risk, then AI may predict that. Oh, I see a question. We are talking about confidentiality, but why do some doctors' offices or insurance companies start the call off with recording? Depends on who's using the recording and what the recording is being used for. It's really interesting to me when I go to my primary care physician, they have a recorder that they use with us in the office now that is AI. It is transcribing and it is taking notes of our conversations with my primary care doctor. And it's like, oh, and I'm going to assume that they have their own program and they've made sure it's confidential within their program, but that is their policies. Does that answer your question? Yes, Melody, mine does too. Ask permission before using it. So anytime you look at AI, some organizations have designed their own AI programs. Some organizations are using other people's programs. What I go with is if it is something that the organization I work with has approved, then I'm going to assume that it meets the standards of the organization. Okay. But if I'm doing something outside of what my organization approves, like using ChatGPT or something like that, then it is on me to make sure that it's safe.
Well, and I think, Angie, that brings up a good point for like some of the organizations, like maybe someone on here is in leadership, right? When you're like writing your policy, those are things that you probably need to get your board on, you know, on board with, and do the research. And maybe that's something, I don't know, Angie, if you have any experience with that, but what kind of things do they need to be looking out for? I know we've talked about like where they store their data and stuff like that, but as far as like, approving certain uses, maybe if you have anything.
Yeah, it's so dependent on the organization and what they want and how that's all going to work. As we see things change in the future, a lot of organizations may be developing their own AIs to use within the organization. And that's kind of where I see it going in the future. But I don't know. I can't predict the future. That's just what I see. So now we're going to go back to our poll everywhere. So hopefully you still have that link pulled up on your phones. Where do you think AI bias is most likely to show up? It should show up now. Honestly, everywhere. I like that. It is true. It's kind of everywhere, isn't it? Oh, did my screen just... Hang on, my screen went out. Hang on. Okay, there it is again. Um, let's see here. Switch to the first one. Okay, sorry about that glitch with my screen, but it should be working again. We've got everywhere, we've got cultural, and we've got honesty. Okay. Politically, yes, we're seeing that a lot, especially if it's been trained based on like recent news articles or anything like that. There is some political issues associated with it. Status. Socioeconomic status, honesty, issues, decisions, differences, statuses. You guys have got all kinds of stuff popping up here. So, okay. So yeah, we are likely to see it in a lot of different ways. Someone put brainstorming. That's a good thing too. You know, if AI is more familiar with like CBT instead of some other therapy, it may give you more ideas based on CBT and brainstorming than something else. So you want to think about, okay, what else is there? What other information can I get that might contradict this or might give me new ideas? You can even have conversations with AI about that. You know, okay, tell me ideas completely on the other side of the spectrum. You know, tell me something completely different I could do and try to work with it that way as well. So our next one is who could be unintentionally harmed by AI bias? And they're mowing right outside my window again, so I apologize if the noise is really loud, but he just drove right past my window. So clients, okay. Staff, yes. Definitely the client, okay. Vulnerable populations, good. Organizations, yes. If your organization relies on AI data and that AI data is incorrect, you could screw your whole organization up, okay? Americans, populations, African Americans. Yeah, all of these are things that we want to think about, you know. How big of a problem is it when we have this bias? And so that relates back to that double check everything, read everything. We all know that we have our own biases, and we need to think about how that might work within AI and how we might make sure that we're not causing harm. Okay. Anyone, I like that answer. Anyone can be unintentionally harmed by AI bias. And so we want to think about those answers. Okay, we're going to go on here. Like I said earlier, AI bias can mirror historical inequality. It can shape eligibility decisions. I don't remember if it's this session or the next one, but we'll talk more about that too. Bias can influence how clients are described. It can affect which programs are designed and for whom. And the most impacted people are often already marginalized communities. Do we want to put another bias in there? Do we want to put another barrier to them getting help? And so we want to think about those things when we're thinking about AI. So when we're looking at reducing AI bias, don't rely solely on AI for eligibility decisions. Review outputs for stereotypes or deficit kind of framing. Ask yourself who might be excluded or harmed if I follow this. Cross-check against agency policies and your own experiences. You all have a lot of experience in the field. Look at that experience and see what can come up. Maintain your human judgment and your supervision. And I know I say it a lot, but don't just trust AI. Look at it, review it, think about it, talk to your supervisors, you know, get other thoughts in there. AI hallucinations and how to spot them. AI can sound very, very confident about everything, even when it is completely wrong. Ask it to verify sources. Click those sources and make sure the links are valid. You know, read the data where it's coming from. Ask AI to show reasoning. Can you tell me how you decided this was the best option? And work through it and see if it matches or is different from whatever you would have thought. Cross-check your policy or law. You know, is this really the law? They may be pulling from a law that was in place 20 years ago or 2 years ago, but isn't currently in place. And so you want to cross-check any policies or laws. Be cautious with statistics. It will make them up. It will say, oh, 30% of people believe this. And then it can't give you where that information came from. Watch for those fabricated citations and always cross-check what you entered as well, because the way you write things can make it give differing information. Okay, so our next question on Poll Everywhere is, if AI were to give you a clear, confident answer, how likely are you to double check it? Okay, so we've got 40% always, 20% usually, 20% sometimes, and 20% depends on the situation. Okay. So that is about what I see with students, but not always. Oh, I hit the wrong button again. So yeah, that's about what I see with students, but not always. So when you're thinking about, AI, a lot of people do have that idea that, hey, this is correct information. I should believe it. And the main point in this conversation or in this part of the presentation today is don't trust it. Okay, just don't trust it. Bias and hallucination examples. I put these in here because it's something that has been in the news, and some of you may have heard of it as well. When some image generation systems were asked to create historical images like the founding fathers or Civil War soldiers, they produced racially and gender diverse results that were historically inaccurate. And this is because the systems were told, okay, you're being too biased by having everything white men. And so how do I say this? The AI system decided, okay, well, now I have to be less biased and I have to include all of this other diversity stuff because that's what they want me to do. And all of a sudden, we have a founding father who's a female or a person of color. And so sometimes it overcorrects when they try and correct bias. And that produces diversity where it really wasn't there in our history. Um, Spotting hallucinations. According to the 2023 Maternal Stability Report, 68% of pregnant women in rural counties who experience housing instability also meet criteria for moderate to severe depression. Tennessee Department of Health, 2023. That report doesn't exist. Okay, so it's like, wait a minute, if that report doesn't exist, how do I know? Where is this data coming from? And it's kind of just making it up. Okay, it is just making it up. Under current Tennessee SNAP policy, pregnant women automatically qualify for expedited benefits if they report housing security. This policy was updated in 2022 to address disparities in maternal health outcomes. That's not true either. Okay. And so it sounds like it really knows what's going on. It knows what's happening, and it's not correct. Given these data, best practice would be to prioritize immediate SNAP enrollment and refer the client for mental health services. Why? You know, it's giving you information that just isn't there. And so you want to be very cautious. I am a big fan of, well, let me go double check everything that AI says just to make sure that it's not doing something incorrectly. Another big issue, and I fall into this trap myself, okay? It's really easy to start asking AI questions and become over reliant on AI. Instead of using your own judgment, instead of using supervision, instead of using policy reviews, AI sounds really confident and it gives you quick answers. So, hey, this is what AI said. Okay, I'm good to go. No, don't do it. Don't do it. It does reduce our critical thinking skills. If AI makes the decisions, are we needed anymore? And I know that's a concern with a lot of people in the field is my job going to disappear because AI is going to take over? And I don't think so, but I can't guarantee that. But we know AI makes bad decisions. So double check things. It may feel objective, but it may not really be objective. And we all know that we are all under a time crunch. We all have lots of things on our plates that have to get done. And that makes those shortcuts very tempting. Just because it's efficient doesn't mean it's accurate. Over-reliance can weaken your professional judgment. It can reduce your critical review of policy documentation. It can reduce your client context. Accountability will always rest with you as a professional, not the AI. Okay, so I've kind of given you all the bad stuff about AI, right? I think that was my last one on bad stuff. Let me see. Where it might show up. Letting AI draft documents without reviewing carefully. I read every single thing AI gives me and I edit it. I don't just say, hey, this is good stuff. Reliance might happen if you ask AI to summarize a case instead of reading the full file, okay? You need to read the full file. AI may not pull out everything you need to know. Accepting AI eligibility explanations without checking policy, maybe it's wrong. Using AI-generated statistics without verifying, and treating AI suggestions as clinical insight. AI is not a therapist yet. It's not trained to do your job yet. So make sure you are thinking things through yourself. If we outsource our thinking, we also outsource that accountability. And that's not how our jobs work. Okay, that's not who we are. We don't want the computer to be accountable for something. Imagine that you used a therapy tool that AI told you to use, and that made your client a lot worse. How are you going to feel? How are you going to justify that? So you want to start thinking about that accountability as well. So we want to think all four of our ethical risks intersect. Bias affects fairness, hallucinations affect accuracy, over-reliance affects judgment, and of course, PII risks affect our confidentiality. We need to make sure we're taking those into account anytime we're looking at this. Your PII protection practices, would you put it into an email to someone outside your organization? If the answer is no, don't put it into AI, okay? Don't put their name, their birth date, their case details, location identifiers, unique personal circumstances, diagnoses, HIPAA considerations. If your own organization has an AI program that they have bought and purchased and planned and done all that with, and you are allowed to enter that stuff into that, that's fine, okay? But if you're just putting it into ChatGPT, no, okay? Absolutely not. Public AI tools are not HIPAA compliant documentation systems. It's only those that are specifically contracted and approved by your agency. And we will see more of those in the future. So we're going to do a little activity here. This is AI safe versus unsafe. And I'm going to go back to our presentation. And let me get that back, or our poll everywhere presentation here. And take me just a second to get back to where I was. Okay. So our first one is summarize this case note about my client. Do you think that's allowed, possibly allowed, not allowed? Or safe, not safe, and it depends. I put two different word options up there, sorry. Okay. Most are saying not safe, but some are saying it depends. And we'll come back and talk about each of these after I go through all the scenarios. Okay. Our next one, generate a worksheet for a parenting class on managing stress. Everybody's saying safe on that one. Okay. You guys are fast on that one. Write this email to a client about her missed appointment. Got a lot of it depends, a couple safes and a couple not safes. Okay. Help me think through whether this client qualifies for SNAP benefits. We're really not sure on this one. It's going up and down, safe, not safe, and it depends. Okay. So let's see here. 42% say not safe, 42 say it depends, and 17 say safe. Okay. And these are anonymous, so I'm not judging you based on them. Okay. Generate a list of discussion questions for a domestic violence support group. Almost everybody said safe on that one, but a couple people say it depends. Okay. And then our last, oh, no, don't do that one yet. Sorry, that was all my scenarios. So those are kind of the scenarios that I used thinking about, what can I do to show that, yes, you can use it for some things, but you want to be cautious about it. So let's go to our first one. Summarize this case note about my client. Probably not safe unless it's something that your organization has purchased, has done on its own, has contracted out a specific thing, not just put in ChatGPT. And some of the issues associated with this one is, it's not going to pick up on all the contextual clues that you might have. You might write down notes that say, client seemed depressed. And to you, that's really important. And to the machine, it might be, oh, they're just having a bad day. It might be, oh, they're super depressed. They need mental health help right now. And so it can kind of infer things that may not be true. And so you want to be very cautious about those kind of scenarios. Number 2, generate a worksheet for a parenting class on managing stress. Now, most of you did say on this one that it was fine, and it usually is fine. There's not any specific data about the client that you're putting in there. There's not a lot of things that could be identified. So that's a good way to do it. Of course, you want to double check your worksheet and make sure that it's a correct worksheet, that it's something that you do want to do. Rewrite this email to a client about her missed appointment. I'm going with it depends on that one. You can ask it to write an email without putting the name or any identifying information and then edit it. A safer version would be create a professional but supportive template email for a missed appointment reminder. And so that's a lot more vague. But as long as you're not putting in the client name and the client information, it can help you write those. Again, review it once it does. Help me think through whether this client qualifies for SNAP benefits. This one is generally not allowed, again, unless it's something that your organization has purchased and is doing. A safer version might be, what are the general eligibility criteria for SNAP in Tennessee? An even safer version than that, I thought about this after I did the slides. Can you tell me where to find the eligibility criteria for SNAP in Tennessee? Because that way it's not pulling it, you're going and finding it yourself. And so you want to think about that instead of tell me whether this client qualifies, what are the qualifications, what are the eligibility criteria? And so that one is typically not allowed because you would have to put in that client information in order to find out if they qualify for SNAP benefits. Number 5 was generate a list of questions for domestic violence support group. That's generally okay. What did you guys put? 85% said safe and 15% said it depends. And we made a mistake on this one and put the safer version from the last one on there. So ignore the safer version part on there. I didn't catch that. But generate a list of questions for a domestic violence support group. You could even be more specific and say, like, hey, this support group is covering this. Okay, and so those are things that you want to think about with your scenarios. Okay, so what makes something unsafe? What details shift something from safe to unsafe? And could any of these be written to remove identifiers? Those are things you want to think about. What makes it unsafe is usually something that identifies that client. If you keep that out, it's a little bit safer. If you shift something, you accidentally put in a name of someone or an identifying information of someone, that makes it more unsafe. And so you could rewrite any of these to remove identifiers and then go with it. Let's see here. Use AI as a support tool, not a decision maker. That is our goal number 4. And I just looked at the clock and realized I have talked a lot, so I may go a little bit faster through this. But we will give you the presentation and we will give you the handout as well. So you'll have these things. Remember, AI is a support tool, not a decision maker. It can draft a safety plan template. It cannot write a safety plan. It cannot determine if a child should be removed from a home. It cannot diagnose or provide medical advice. Ada Lovelace Institute warns that without robust governance and evaluation, the social work sector risks embedding tools that prioritize efficiency over accountability, accuracy, and public benefit. And we've got to make sure that we are not doing that. It's not just about efficiency. So your poll everywhere. Oh, where'd it go? There it is. And let me get that on that screen too. One guardrail rail I will use when working with AI is, what is something that you will do if you're working with AI that will kind of help out or keep you safe? Double check, ask, resources. Okay. Fact checking, good. Verifying information, good. And that's kind of what I wanted to cover today is, how can we do that? How can we make sure that we are providing the information that is needed to help people? Verify sources, checking your prompts. Good, very good answers here. And these are some references that I have for it. Some of these are links you can click on. When I talked about the diversity failures, that's this one, this article here. ChatGPT and social work is a really interesting one as well. And then there's a new thing that's coming out. We'll talk about this next week too. Can AI actually be your therapist? We asked the AI or the CEO building one, and they've actually created an AI therapist bot that is trained in therapy work, trained by psychiatrists and psychologists and stuff like that. And I haven't played with it much, but that is something to look at. So, um,
It looks like we have a question in the chat, Angie. I'll go ahead and read
okay.
it out for you. So
Mhm.
Dia asked, if I have an account with ChatGPT, what is your counsel with regard to growing the information ChatGPT knows about my business? So my business name, website, services, departments, etc., as I create policies, for example, or I am asking it to draft financial statistical graphs. Is it okay in this scenario to provide information about the company, but not the clients or employees?
Generally, I would say yes on that one. Whatever you put in there should be something that could be public knowledge. So if you are creating reports based on, how many people you are serving, but you're not like producing individual data about those people, that's okay. It is more about like anything that would be held private is what you want to be cautious about. AI knows a lot about me. I know that it probably knows too much about me. But it's helping, like everything you put into it, it's going to remember and track and go back. You can go in and erase chat's memory if you wish to do so. There's simple steps that we can go through on how to do that as well. Let's see here. Melody said, I have heard folks attack some using it and how it hurts our water supply. Is this something to consider? Yes and no. Um, there are a lot of things that are out there about how AI is harmful to the environment, how AI is causing problems with things, using too much water. I read an article just a few days ago. Let me see if I can find it. Let me stop sharing my screen for just a second here, and see if I can find it. But it said that AI was not using as much water as people were saying. Maybe I have it. I think I have it saved somewhere, but it's going to take me a minute.
I can also send it with a follow-up, Angie, if it'll take you a
Okay.
second to find it. I can send it to you, Melody.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to find it and send it. There are concerns, but there's also, you know, everything we do online takes water. Everything we do online takes power. How are we managing that in other ways? One article that I found on it was like comparing how much water AI uses per prompt to like how much water you use on a regular day, and it really wasn't that big of an impact. But then when you add a whole lot of people using AI over and over and over, it can add up. And so, that's not my expertise at all. But I will find that article and add it in. Are there any other questions? Okay. So next week, we're going to do a session that talks more about like using AI policies. I thought that was on today's, but it's not. It's next week's. AI policies, developing AI policies, and then some hands-on work on like how to work with AI. What are some things you can do as an individual, and how can it help you out?
Absolutely. Well, we'll leave the chat open for a few more minutes in case anybody has questions, but we're looking forward to next week, Angie, and learning some more use cases and just being able to practice a little bit more with the prompting. Like you said, I think it's important that we learn how, like what we're putting into it, but also doing it in a safe way. So we're looking
Mhm.
forward to that. And thank you so much for presenting on this important topic today. And then, of course, for allowing space for us to share and collaborate too, Angie. Thank you to everyone who made time to attend our session. And like I said, I'll send out all these follow-ups this afternoon, and then we'll get this video posted to our YouTube very soon too, in case you all want to share it with your colleagues or other people at your organization. And then, like I said, I will follow up via email this afternoon. If you have any other questions or need any other support, though, we please just email our help desk and we will get that for you. Y'all have a wonderful afternoon, and we hope to see you next week. Thanks again, Angie, and everybody else for being here.
Thank you all for attending.